The blade glinted in the dim streetlight, trembling in Riley's hand as she faced the woman standing alone at the edge of the park. Her heart thundered, not from the thrill of the crime, but from the sickening churn of desperation that had driven her here. 28, broke and running from a past that clung like damp rot. Riley had never imagined she'd be the kind of person to rob a stranger, let alone a blind one. The woman, unaware of the knife, tilted her head slightly, as if sensing the shift in the air. Her name was Elena, though Riley didn't know that yet. 30, with auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, Elena stood with a quiet grace, her white cane resting lightly against her side. The park was nearly empty, the hum of New York City a distant pulse. Riley's breath hitched. This was supposed to be quick, grab the purse, run, survive another day. But something about Elena's calm, the way her lips curved in a faint, trusting smile, made Riley's resolve waver. "Hey," Riley said, her voice rougher than intended. "To need your bag. Now." The words felt like gravel in her throat. She stepped closer, the knife hidden behind her back, her free hand twitching toward Elena's leather satchel. Elena didn't flinch. Her hazel eyes, clouded but piercing, seemed to look right through Riley. "You sound like you don't want to do this," she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth that caught Riley off guard. "What's your name?" Riley froze. No one had ever asked her that in a moment like this. She'd mugged a couple of people before, drunks, distracted tourists, but they'd either screamed or handed over their wallets in terror. Elena was different. Her calmness was unnerving, like she could see Riley's soul despite her blindness. "Just give me the bag," Riley snapped, but her voice cracked, betraying her. Elena tilted her head again, her fingers brushing the cane. "I'm Elena, and I don't think you're a bad person. You're just lost." She reached out, her hand hovering in the air, searching. Riley instinctively stepped back, her heart pounding. Why wasn't this woman afraid? Why wasn't she running? "I don't need your pity," Riley spat, but her grip on the knife loosened. The weight of it felt wrong now, like it was burning her palm. She'd grown up in foster homes, scraping by, learning to survive by shutting off her heart. But Elena's voice, steady and kind, was prying open something Riley had buried long ago. "I'm not pitying you," Elena said, her hand still outstretched. "I'm offering you a choice. Take my bag or talk to me. I'll listen." Riley's mind raced. She needed money now. Her landlord had given her until tomorrow to pay rent, or she'd be on the streets again. She'd already sold her guitar, her last tether to the dream she'd once had of being a musician. But Elena's words were a lifeline, pulling her toward a shore she couldn't see. She lowered the knife, shoving it into her pocket. "You're crazy," she muttered, but she didn't move. Elena smiled, a real one this time, and gestured to a nearby bench. "Maybe. Sit with me." Against every instinct, Riley sat. The bench was cold, the park quiet except for the distant wail of a siren. Elena settled beside her, her cane leaning against her knee. "Why do you need my bag?" she asked, not accusingly but with genuine curiosity. Riley stared at the ground, her boots scuffing the dirt. "I'm behind on rent. I got nowhere else to go." The confession slipped out before she could stop it. She waited for judgment, for Elena to call her a failure. Instead, Elena nodded as if she understood. "I've been lost too," Elena said. "Lost my sight when I was 20. Car accident. Took me years to figure out who I was after that." She paused, her fingers tracing the edge of her cane. "But I learned something. Sometimes the things we think we need, like money or control, aren't what we're really looking for." Riley's throat tightened. She wanted to laugh, to tell Elena she didn't know anything about her life. But the truth was, Elena's words hit too close. Riley had spent years running from her past, her pain, herself. She'd never let anyone in, not since her first love, a girl in high school who'd broken her heart and left her terrified of feeling again. They sat in silence for a moment, the city's pulse growing louder as night fell. Riley glanced at Elena, her profile soft against the streetlights. There was something magnetic about her, something that made Riley want to stay, even though every part of her screamed to run. "What do you do?" Riley asked, surprising herself. She hadn't meant to care. Elena's smile returned. "I'm a music therapist. I help people find their way through sound. It's grounding." She turned her head toward Riley. Do you like music? Riley's chest ached. She hadn't touched a guitar in months, but music had once been her everything. Used to, she said quietly. Don't have time for it anymore. Elena nodded, as if she heard the weight behind the words. Maybe you'll find time again. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a small card. This is my card. If you ever want to talk or play, I'm at the community center on 14th Street most days. Riley took the card, her fingers brushing Elena's. The touch was brief but electric, sending a jolt through her. She stared at the card, the embossed letters spelling out Elena's name and contact. For the first time in years, Riley felt something like hope, fragile and unfamiliar. I should go, Riley said, standing abruptly. She couldn't afford to feel this, not now. But as she walked away, Elena's voice called after her. You're not alone, you know. Riley didn't look back, but the words followed her into the night. Riley clutched Elena's card in her pocket as she walked through the neon-lit streets of Manhattan, the city's chaos a mirror to her own. She hadn't taken the purse, but the weight of her failure pressed harder than ever. Rent was due in 12 hours, and her wallet held nothing but lint and a crumpled receipt. She found herself at a dive bar, the kind where the air smelled of stale beer and regret. Sitting at the counter, she ordered a cheap whiskey, her mind replaying Elena's words. You're not alone. They felt like a taunt. Riley had been alone her whole life through foster homes, heartbreak, the grind of survival. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Yet, as the whiskey burned her throat, she pulled out the card again. The embossed letters felt like a secret code, a promise she didn't dare believe. She imagined Elena's face, her calm certainty, and something stirred in Relay a longing she'd buried since she was 17, when her first girlfriend, Sarah, had left her for someone less complicated. Riley had vowed never to let anyone close again. She paid for the drink with her last few dollars and stepped into the cold night. Her apartment, a cramped studio in the Bronx, was a 40-minute subway ride away. As she walked to the station, her phone buzzed a text from her landlord. Pay by noon or you're out. Panic clawed at her chest. She needed a plan fast. The next morning, Riley stood outside the community center on 14th Street, Elena's card still in her pocket. She hadn't planned to come here, but her feet had carried her anyway. The building was old, its brick facade worn but welcoming. Inside, she heard faint music, soft piano notes, a child's laughter. She hesitated, then pushed open the door. Elena was in a small room, guiding a group of kids through a music therapy session. She sat at a piano, her fingers moving with a precision that belied her blindness. The kids, ranging from 6 to 12, played simple instruments, tambourines, maracas following Elena's gentle instructions. Riley stood in the doorway unnoticed, her heart twisting at the sight. Elena looked radiant, her auburn hair catching the sunlight, her voice a soothing melody. When the session ended, Elena turned toward the door, as if sensing Riley's presence. You came, she said, her smile warm but not surprised. Riley shifted uncomfortably. Didn't have anywhere else to go. It was half true. She'd considered robbing a bodega that morning but couldn't bring herself to do it, not after Elena's words. Elena gestured to a chair. Sit. Want to try playing something? She pointed to a guitar in the corner, its strings gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Riley's fingers itched. She hadn't touched a guitar since she'd sold hers, but the pull was undeniable. She picked it up, the weight familiar and comforting. Strumming a few chords, she felt a rush of memories, late nights writing songs, dreaming of a life beyond survival. Elena listened, her head tilted, her expression unreadable. You're good, Elena said when Riley stopped. Really good. Why'd you give it up? Riley's jaw tightened. Life got in the way. She didn't elaborate, but Elena didn't push. Instead, she slid her fingers across the piano keys, playing a soft melody that seemed to echo Riley's unspoken pain. They spent the next hour playing together, their music a conversation words couldn't capture. Riley's guard began to crumble, each note pulling her closer to Elena. When the session ended, Elena invited her to stay for coffee. Over chipped mugs in the center's kitchen, Riley found herself talking about her childhood, her dreams, the girlfriend who'd shattered her trust. Elena listened, her presence a quiet anchor. You don't have to keep running, Elena said at one point, her hand resting near Riley's on the table. You can choose to stay. Riley wanted to believe her, but the ticking clock of her eviction loomed. I don't have a choice, she said, her voice breaking. I'm out of time. Elena's fingers brushed Riley's, a fleeting touch that sent warmth through her. Come back tomorrow, she said. We'll figure something out. Together. Riley left the center with a mix of hope and dread. She didn't know if she could trust Elena or herself. But as she walked home, the guitar's weight lingered in her hands, and Elena's touch lingered in her heart. The eviction notice was taped to Riley's door when she got home, a stark white sheet screaming her failure. She had until 6 p.m. to pay $800 or lose everything. Her stomach churned as she sank onto the floor, the guitar from the community center still echoing in her mind. She thought of Elena, her voice, her touch, the way she'd made Riley feel seen for the first time in years. But hope was a dangerous thing, and Riley had learned to distrust it. She grabbed her jacket and headed out, her old instincts kicking in. If she couldn't pay, she'd steal what she needed. One last job, she told herself, then she'd figure out how to face Elena. The streets of the Bronx were alive with noise, car horns, shouting vendors, the pulse of a city that never slept. Riley scoped out a small jewelry store, its window glinting with promise. She'd done this before years ago, slipping rings into her pocket when no one was looking. But as she lingered outside, Elena's words haunted her. You're not a bad person. You're just lost. She turned away, her heart racing. Instead of the store, she found herself back at the subway, heading to 14th Street. When she arrived at the community center, Elena was there, teaching a group of adults this time. Riley watched from the doorway, her chest tight. Elena's hands moved over a set of chimes, her voice guiding the group through a meditation exercise. The sound was hypnotic, pulling Riley in despite herself. When the session ended, Elena approached her. You're back, she said, her smile soft but knowing. I'm glad. Riley shifted, her hands stuffed in her pockets. I don't know why I'm here, she admitted. I'm about to lose my place. I got nothing. Elena's expression didn't waver. You have you, she said. And you have music. That's more than nothing. Riley wanted to argue, to tell Elena that music didn't pay bills. But the sincerity in Elena's voice stopped her. Instead, she followed Elena to a small practice room, where they sat with the guitar again. This time, Elena asked Riley to teach her a chord. Their hands brushed as Riley guided Elena's fingers over the strings, the contact sending a shiver through her. For a moment, the world outside eviction, hunger, fear faded away. You're a natural, Riley said, surprised by Elena's quick grasp of the notes. Elena laughed, a sound that warmed the room. I've always loved music, Elena said. It's how I see the world now. Every sound tells a story. She paused, her fingers still on the guitar. What's your story, Riley? The question hit like a punch. Riley had spent so long hiding her story, burying it under layers of survival. But with Elena, the truth spilled out. She told her about the foster homes, the bullying, the girl who'd made her believe in love only to leave her broken. She told her about the music she'd once lived for, the songs she'd written in stolen moments. Elena listened, her hand resting near Riley's. When Riley finished, tears stung her eyes. I don't know how to start over, she whispered. Elena reached out, her fingers finding Riley's cheek. You already have, she said. You're here. The moment hung between them, charged with something Riley couldn't name. She wanted to lean into Elena's touch, to let herself feel the connection growing between them. But the eviction notice loomed in her mind, a ticking bomb. I need to go, she said, pulling away. I have to figure this out. Elena nodded, but her hand lingered in the air. Come to the open mic tonight, she said. Play something. It might help. Riley left, her mind a storm of conflicting urges. She wanted to stay, to lose herself in Elena's world of music and kindness. But the reality of her empty bank account pulled her back. By late afternoon, desperation won. She found herself outside a pawn shop, eyeing the watches in the display. One quick grab, she thought. Just one. But as she reached for the door, she saw her reflection in the glass, haggard, hollow, a stranger she didn't want to be. Elena's card was still in her pocket, a lifeline she couldn't ignore. She turned away from the shop and headed back to the community center, her heart pounding with a decision she wasn't sure she could keep. The community center was buzzing when Riley arrived for the open mic. The room was packed with locals, artists, dreamers, people like her who'd been chewed up by life but still showed up. She clutched the borrowed guitar, her palms sweaty. Elena was near the stage, chatting with a volunteer, her laughter cutting through the crowd's murmur. Riley hadn't played in front of people in years. The thought of it made her stomach lurch, but Elena's invitation had been a challenge she couldn't refuse. She signed up, her name scrawled shakily on the list. As she waited, her mind drifted to the eviction notice. 6 p.m. had come and gone. Her landlord had probably already changed the locks. When her name was called, Riley's legs felt like lead. She stepped onto the stage, the spotlight harsh against her eyes. The crowd quieted, their faces a blur. Elena sat near the front, her head tilted, listening. Riley strummed the first chord, her fingers trembling. The song was one she'd written years ago, about a girl who'd lost her way but kept searching for home. Her voice cracked at first, but as the melody took hold, she found her rhythm. The room faded away. It was just her, the guitar, and the truth she'd buried for so long. When she finished, the applause was deafening, but it was Elena's smile that anchored her. She stepped off the stage, her heart racing, and Elena was there, her hand finding Riley's arm. "That was beautiful," Elena said, her voice thick with emotion. "You're beautiful." Riley's breath caught. No one had ever called her that, not in the way Elena meant it. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she let Elena pull her into a hug, the warmth of it unraveling years of loneliness. After the open mic, they sat outside on a bench, the night air cool against their skin. Elena's hand rested on Riley's, a quiet promise. "You don't have to face this alone," Elena said. "You can stay with me tonight. I have a couch." Riley's first instinct was to refuse. She'd never relied on anyone, trust was a trap. But Elena's offer wasn't pity. It was genuine, raw, and terrifyingly real. "Why are you doing this?" Riley asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't even know me." Elena's fingers tightened around hers. "I know enough. I know you're trying. And I know I want you in my life." The words hit Riley like a tidal wave. She'd spent so long building walls, but Elena was slipping through the cracks. She nodded, unable to speak, and followed Elena to her apartment, a small but cozy place filled with the scent of lavender and the hum of a record player. They talked late into the night, sharing stories of pain and hope. Riley confessed her fear of loving again, and Elena admitted her own, how losing her sight had made her afraid to let anyone too close. As dawn broke, Riley realized she'd never felt so safe. But the weight of her reality remained. She had no home, no money, no plan. "I can't keep leaning on you," she told Elena over breakfast. "I need to fix this myself." Elena reached across the table, her hand finding Riley's. "You will," she said. "But let me help. There's a job opening at the center, assistant for the music program. It's not much, but it's a start." Riley's heart leapt, but doubt crept in. "I'm not good enough for that. I'm a mess." "You're not a mess," Elena said firmly. "You're a survivor. And you're talented. Let me show you what I see in you." They spent the day together, planning Riley's next steps. Elena introduced her to the center's director, who was impressed by Riley's performance at the open mic. By evening, Riley had a job offer, low pay, but a chance to rebuild. For the first time, she saw a future that wasn't just survival. As they walked through the park that night, the same park where Riley had almost robbed her, Elena stopped and turned to her. "I'm falling for you," she said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability in her words. "And I think you're falling for me too." Riley's heart pounded. She wanted to run, to hide from the intensity of it all. But instead she leaned in, her lips brushing Elena's in a kiss that felt like coming home. It was tentative, then fierce, a promise of something new. Months passed and Riley's life began to take shape. The job at the community center wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. She taught kids to play guitar, helped Elena with therapy sessions, and slowly rebuilt her savings. Each day, she felt a little less like the person who'd held a knife to Elena's back, and a little more like someone worthy of love. Elena was her anchor, her light. They spent evenings cooking together, laughing over burnt pasta and shared dreams. Riley wrote songs again, pouring her heart into melodies that Elena would listen to with a smile, her fingers tracing Riley's as she played. Their love grew quietly, built on trust and vulnerability, two things Riley had never thought she'd find. But the past wasn't done with her. One evening as they walked home from the center, a man approached them, a former foster brother Riley hadn't seen in years. His name was Marcus, and he'd always been trouble. "Heard you're doing good now," he said, his voice laced with mockery. "Got a fancy job, a girlfriend. Too good for us now." Riley tensed, her old instincts flaring. "Leave us alone, Marcus," she said, stepping in front of Elena. Marcus smirked, his eyes glinting with malice. "You owe me, Riley. Remember that night you bailed on me? I did time for that job." He stepped closer, his presence a threat. Elena's hand found Riley's, grounding her. "We don't want trouble," Elena said calmly, but her voice carried strength. "Walk away." Marcus laughed, but something in Elena's tone made him hesitate. He muttered a curse and left, but Riley knew he'd be back. That night, she told Elena everything about the job she'd pulled with Marcus as a teenager, the guilt she carried, the fear that her past would ruin what they'd built. Elena listened, her hand never leaving Riley's. "Your past doesn't define you," she said. "You've chosen a different path. That's what matters." The next week, Marcus showed up at the center demanding money. Riley faced him alone, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. "I'm not that person anymore," she told him. "I'm done running." Marcus lunged, but Riley was ready. She dodged, using skills she'd learned in self-defense classes Elena had encouraged her to take. The center's security arrived, and Marcus was escorted out, his threats empty in the face of Riley's newfound strength. That night, Riley and Elena sat on their favorite bench in the park, the same one where they'd first talked. Riley took Elena's hand, her voice steady. "I was so lost when I met you," she said. "I thought I was nothing. But you saw something in me, something worth saving." Elena smiled, her fingers tracing Riley's palm. "You saved yourself, Riley. I just reminded you who you are." They kissed under the stars, the city's hum a backdrop to their love. Riley knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, her past would always be there, a shadow she'd have to face. But with Elena by her side, she wasn't afraid anymore. She'd found a home, not in a place but in a person. Years later, Riley would look back on that night in the park. The night she'd almost crossed a line she couldn't uncross, and marvel at how it had led her here. She and Elena built a life together, filled with music, love, and the kind of hope that only comes from choosing to be better. Riley never picked up a knife again, but she carried Elena's card in her wallet always, a reminder of the stranger who changed her life forever. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was there's a testament to the power of second chances, of love that sees beyond flaws, and of the courage to rewrite your own ending. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.